Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube channel. My name is Mike. The Houston Texans have agreed to make Bill O'Brien their third head coach in franchise history. Bill O'Brien becomes the first coach to fill a vacancy here in the offseason. Remember, the Texans got a little bit of a head start in the evaluation process, in the interview process, because they fired Kubiak mid-season. And that's a big reason why you do something like that, to get ahead of the curve and be able to evaluate and interview coaches and have a plan so when the season ends, you can make a hire almost immediately after, like the Texans did. And, they get a guy in O'Brien who was at Penn State the last two seasons, 15-9 as head coach of the Nittany Lions. The 5 years prior to that, he was on the staff with the New England Patriots. He was their offensive coordinator towards the end of that tenure. And other than that, he has a lot of experience from the college ranks, most notably in the ACC with stops at Georgia Tech, Duke, and Maryland. And thinking with the hiring of Bill O'Brien is he's going to be the guy to stabilize that quarterback position. This is not a complete rebuild that this roster needs. It just needs a quarterback to plug in, to develop, and to utilize the weapons he has around him, quite frankly. And they feel Bill O'Brien is the right guy to do that. I think if you were looking for that kind of coach in this NFL offseason, of the guys who are available, he is the best guy if that's what you want from your head coach. I like him better than I like Josh McDaniels, and some of the other offensive-minded options that were out there this offseason. Now, it's easy to say, well, he's a Belichick guy, and Belichick guys haven't had much success as head coaches at the NFL level. To me, that's too easy to say. It's sort of lazy. Let's give this guy some time to see what he has. Certainly, he has a lot of coaching experience outside of being, under Bill Belichick. Only 2 years as a head coach, but overall coaching experience. He's 44 years old, so you have a younger head coach who can now grow with whatever young quarterback they feel is the best option. Whether that's with the #1 overall pick or a pick later in the draft, I think they will address that quarterback need in the upcoming draft. And again, in this league now, guys, it's very important. A quarterback is married to that head coach. And to have a guy who knows quarterbacks, who has, coached obviously one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and, to have that coming in the door, I think is going to be a good thing for the Texans. But again, it all comes down to hitting on that pick, whoever that quarterback is. The tenure of these coaches in the NFL these days, in a quarterback-driven league, in a passing-driven league, is really what it's all tied to, is that quarterback position. If you look at, the bottom 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, and then you put next to that a list of coaches that were on the hot seat at the end of the season, I mean, those lists almost, match up, word for word there. So there is a correlation with that. The Texans get the guy that they feel can get this organization headed in the right direction after losing 14 straight games. But let's not forget, they made the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. They do have some talent on the roster. On the defensive side of the ball, J.J. Watt. We'll see if they re-sign Antonio Smith. Brian Cushing, although coming back from an injury. And Jonathan Joseph at cornerback. And on the offensive side of the ball, they have an offensive line that has some good pieces that can be spruced up. They obviously have the 2 talented receivers and Arian Foster, who's also coming back from an injury. But this is not a terrible rebuild. It's going to take 5 years to win situation down there with the Texans. And lastly, owner Bob McNair, I think, again, wise to go and work for a guy like McNair. He's a class guy. He runs a good organization, and he's patient. It's very important to have a patient owner. And I think the 2 guys that come to mind are the Ford family in Detroit and McNair, who were very patient with coaches in the past, and that's important to a coach. He wants to be able to implement his program and have an owner that is behind him and believes in the process of a 4 or 5 year plan. And O'Brien gets that with McNair. But hey, what do I think of the hire? Let me see who they get at quarterback first and how that quarterback develops. Because again, I think it all hinges on that. Guys, let me know what you think. Hit me up in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter at @SNewsAnalysis. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. Guys, I'm covering all the NFL news items. Also getting into my playoff coverage as well and NFL draft stuff wall to wall. So be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.